YouTube and welcome to my shop. I hope you are going to enjoy this video today because I have something very interesting to share with you. I have a new piece of test equipment that I recently acquired in my shop here, and that is presented to you right here. This is the Triplett Model 631 Vacuum Tube Voltmeter / Volt Ohm Meter, or VTVM / VOM. Now this is a very interesting piece of test equipment, as you will soon learn. And it compares to my Triplett Model 630 presented right beside it. Now just for a second we're going to take a look at the Model 630 because I feel that the Model 630 is a very common and a very reliable vacuum tube, VOM or Volt Ohm meter. Now the Model 630 was produced for quite a while and is one of the most famous meters that Triplett ever built. They are known for their standard of accuracy, they are known for their durability, and they are known for their quality. Now this particular example of a 630 is a very functional and very a very good looking meter. Now the Model 630 that I currently own unfortunately has a couple cracks in the bakelite case. There's one back here, there's one here, and there's some scuffs on it. But it is still a very functional and reliable meter, and I am very happy to have it here in my shop. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what's the difference between the 630 and the Model 631, which we're going to take a look at right now. And the main difference is that the Model 631 combines the function of a VOM, such as the Triplett 630, and it also combines a vacuum tube voltmeter circuit, all built into one. Now, comparing that to traditional vacuum tube voltmeters, such as the one up here, which is my RCA Volt Ohmist WV77E. This vacuum tube voltmeter and most other vacuum tube voltmeters that were ever produced run on AC power. They have a power cord coming out of the back of them, and they typically use 2 vacuum tubes in them operating on 6 or 12 volts for the tubes. Now, the engineers at Triplett designed this meter in such a way that it does not have a power cord protruding out of the back of it. And the way they operate a vacuum tube voltmeter in this unit is it operates on a 1R5 tube, which is a 1 volt tube. And the engineers at Triplett really designed this meter to be a very unique meter and a very interesting meter for its time, and a very well built and reliable meter, in that they did not require the meter to run off of 120 volts AC. So the serviceman that would be taking this meter out on a service call might require the basic VOM functions for day-to-day use. But on the rare occasion that they would require a vacuum tube voltmeter, they did not need to carry a separate vacuum tube voltmeter with them and rely on that meter being able to be plugged in and warmed up and used. Instead, they came up with a simple switch to flip this over to VTVM mode, which would simply take the internal 1 volt battery in this meter to heat up the internal 1 volt tube and allow you to have a vacuum tube voltmeter function. When the technician or serviceman was done using the meter in the vacuum tube voltmeter function, they would flip the meter back over to the volt ohm meter function to preserve battery life and to cool back down that internal tube. So it's a very economic built design. It's a very simple design in how it works, and I think it was a very good design for its time, in that most other companies didn't think of this design to include a 1 volt tube in their vacuum tube voltmeter design, so it did not require a power cord. Now, looking at my particular meter is in excellent cosmetic shape and excellent functional shape. There are no scratches or blemishes to the plastic meter front here. The range switch, as you can hear, moves very freely. The zero adjust control and the ohms adjust control move freely, and there are no cracks or other dents or damages to the cosmetic condition of this meter. It's in perfect shape. And looking at the handle is still very flexible, and it's in very good condition. It's not dry rotting or otherwise damaged in any way, which makes this for a very nice example of the Triplett Model 631 meter. Now the next thing I'm going to show with you is I'm going to show that I have the original test leads for this meter that are, as you can see, in very sad condition, but they are here. Now what I plan to do with these leads is I plan to disconnect the original routing wire and to reuse these leads with new silicone wire to make them serviceable again. So I am very lucky and very fortunate to still have the original test leads. I also have my new test leads that I built myself, and I am now going to give you a quick demonstration of this meter on the VOM function, and I am going to test a 9-volt battery. So bear with me one moment while I get my lead set up here, and we're going to go ahead and test a 9-volt battery with this meter. So I'm just getting the lead set up here, and I'm going to go ahead and hook them up into the jacks for a regular volt-ohm meter. And we are now going to test a 9-volt battery with this meter. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the meter scale. So 9 volts, we're on the 12-volt scale on DC, so 9 volts is around here or so. So a good 9-volt battery, that's where it should read. So I'm going to go ahead and connect my test leads across the battery now, and you can go ahead and watch the meter. And this one's reading a little bit weak. It's reading about 7 volts. But that does demonstrate that this meter is working on the DC ranges. I am now going to switch the meter over to the 300 volt AC position, and we are now going to connect the meter across a standard 120 volt power line, and we're going to read the result. Now this meter on 120 volts should read on the 300 volt scale, should be right around here between 100 and 150 volts. So I am now going to go ahead and connect the meter across the AC power line, and we're going to see where we read. And to be expected, we're reading 120 volts, which is very good for this meter. So as I have already determined, this meter is a very accurate and a very reliable meter so far. So I am now done with the demonstration portion of this video, so I'm going to get my test leads moved out of the way, and I'm going to now open up this meter so I can show you the inside and how they have designed it. Now this meter, just like other Triplett meters such as the Model 630, is very easy to service and very easy to open, as you will soon know. The meter is held together by 4 screws in the back, and I am now going to remove them now. They are slotted screws. I'm going to remove the screws that hold this meter together, and we're going to check out the inside. Okay, I'm going to drop out all the screws. Okay, all the screws have come out, and as you can see, they're just standard flat screws. I know the camera probably isn't focusing on that, but that's what they are. And all 4 of the screws are matching, which is always nice to see. So now, just like all other meters of this era made by Triplett, they all come apart very easily. And the main way to get these apart is simply to hold the body of the meter and pull it away from the rear Bakelite housing. Just like that, and the entire meter comes up as one unit, and here we can see the inside of the Bakelite housing. There is no damage, no cracks, nothing wrong with this Bakelite housing. This is a very nice meter. And now I can show you, again, the front of the meter as well as the back side. Now this meter, as you can see, it is very well engineered and very well built by Triplett, which was the standard for all their meters. They built them very well, and they built them last, and they built them reliably. Here we can see just all the work that went into this meter, all these precision wire-wound resistors that make up the range switch, and we can actually see the wafers inside there, inside of the range switch, and we can see the top of the range switch, which shows all the wire-wound resistors. We can also see a 1.5 volt battery, and I believe 2 60 volt batteries back here, which provide the B+ portion of the circuit for the tube. Now the tube, here is the tube. It is a 1R5 tube that operates the vacuum tube voltmeter portion. Now the designers at Triplett knew that these meters would be banged around and used very often, so they included a tube shield to hold down the tube and protect it from damage, which I think was a very nice part, or a very nice thing to do on Triplett's part. We can see also the various wiring that makes up the meter, and we can see the B+ test switch here in operation. So this is a very nicely built meter, and it's very easy to service and just a very well engineered piece. And I hope you enjoy taking a look at this meter today. I think it's very unique how they built this meter, and it's very reliable how they made this meter as well, to include this one tube, where other manufacturers hadn't really thought of that at this time. It's a very dependable meter, and I am very glad to share this meter with you, and I am very glad that I have such a nice example of the Model 631. So I will just give you a quick walk around of the 631 chassis. We'll zoom in a little bit on it here. And we will go ahead and flip it around like this, just so you can get an idea of the internal construction of this meter and how it was put together all those years ago, and how this meter still holds up today as being one of the best meters ever made, just like the Model 630. And there you go. So I really hope you enjoy this demonstration and quick look at the Triplett Model 631 vacuum tube voltmeter and volt-ohm meter. So I am now going to take this meter and I'm going to put it back together for you, because these are very easy to work on. So all we do is we just drop the meter right back in its housing, and it goes together just like that. And I will now put the 4 screws back in the meter just like they came out. So as you know, the designers at Triplett made this meter very easy to service, and also made it a very reliable and a very dependable meter, which I am really thankful for. I am so glad to own this meter, and I really think that the designers that built this really knew what they were doing, as they did with all their other products back in the day. And it's just a shame that things are never built this way anymore in the modern world. Everything is made to be thrown away. But yet people like us will always be able to keep this vintage piece of equipment alive, just like all the other wonderful vintage pieces of test equipment that we have. And these vintage pieces of equipment will still be able to service us very well now and into the future. Just making sure all the screws are tight. You don't want to over tighten these, but you don't want to have them loose either. And I think that's one of the main mistakes that people make with these meters, is they over tighten the screws, and it cracks the Bakelite housing. So you do not want to over tighten the screws on these meters. But I hope you enjoyed the demonstration of the Triplett Model 631 vacuum tube voltmeter and volt-ohm meter, and it makes a very nice addition to my shop here. And I really thank you for watching this video, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns pertaining to this meter or other pieces